the national anthem. Please be seated. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. All right, let's try that again. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, my name is Talia Suarez-Brown, and I will be your moderator for today's official launch of the Shelter Recovery Program spearheaded by the government of Jamaica. Now, before we proceed, it is my duty and privilege to properly acknowledge the distinguished individuals and organizations whose leadership and support are important to today's proceedings. Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica. The Honorable Pernell Charles Jr., Minister of Labor and Social Security. Members of the Cabinet, Cabinet Secretary, Catherine Oginski, Political Counselor representing the High Commissioner for Canada to Jamaica. Members of the Senate, Dr. Dayton Campbell, Member of Parliament. Permanent Secretaries and Heads of Departments and Agencies. Ms. Kate Forbes, President of the IFRC. Representatives of the Jamaica Defense Force. Or international development partners. Representatives of NGOs, faith-based organizations, and the private sector. Distinguished guests, stakeholders, and members of the public joining us in person and online. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us today. Now, ladies and gentlemen, on October 28, Hurricane Melissa struck the shores of Jamaica, leaving many of our people homes damaged, many of our people displaced, and of course, communities disrupted. Now, in the days that followed, of course, we witnessed not only the impact of the hurricane, but the strength of our people, neighbors helping neighbors far and wide, and of course, everyone really putting hands and hearts together to ensure that we put everything that we can possible to face adversity head on. Now, of course, today marks an important milestone in our national disaster recovery process. While emergency response provides immediate relief, recovery is what restores stability, dignity, and security. And this new program, the Shelter Recovery Program, represents Jamaica's structured transition from response to recovery, focused on restoring homes and rebuilding lives. So at this time, ladies and gentlemen, to formally welcome us and set the tone for today's proceedings, I now invite Mrs. Dion Jennings, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. Please put your hands together for her.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica. Senator Floyd Morris, representing the Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Mark Golding. Honorable Pernell Charles Jr., Minister of Labor and Social Security. Other Cabinet Ministers. Honorable Audrey Sewell, OJ, CD, JP, Cabinet Secretary. Ambassador Esmond Reed, Under Secretary for Foreign Trade, representing the Permanent Secretary and Head of the Foreign Service, Ambassador Sheila Seeley Monteith. High Commissioners and Ambassadors, members of the Senate, members of the House of Representatives, permanent secretaries, heads of offices of the international organizations, including representatives from UNICEF, World Food Programme, UNDP, GEMS, the Red Cross, and here we have specially invited guest, Ms. Kate Forbes, President of the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. We also have the coordinator for the Caribbean Chief of Mission, IOM. Staff members of the ministries, departments, and agencies, and I want to highlight from the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, our Chief Technical Director, Mrs. Audrey Dare-Williams, Ms. Suzette Morris, our Director of Social Security, and other representatives here from the ministry, representatives from ODPEM, the Jamaica Defense Force, and other agencies represented here, members of the media, esteemed guests, what a long list. On behalf of the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, it is my honor to welcome you to the official launch of the Shelter Recovery Program, SRP, a critical initiative in the government's efforts to rebuild and recover from the devastating impact of Hurricane Melissa. This program marks a significant milestone in the government of Jamaica's post-hurricane recovery efforts, following the impact of the hurricane on households and communities across several parishes. While the emergency phase required rapid relief and immediate support, today's launch signals our transition to a more structured and sustained approach to shelter restoration and housing recovery. The Shelter Recovery Program has been carefully designed to provide targeted assistance to affected households, supported by clear implementation arrangements, strong interagency coordination, robust accountability mechanisms. It underscores the government's commitment to transparency, efficiency, and ensuring that assistance reaches those who need it most, particularly our most vulnerable. Today, we will be working with the international community, including members of the diaspora, who will be online, I'm sure, some of whom are online. We want to welcome you. So many have worked to mobilize and leverage the support for this important program. This program embodies our shared commitment to leaving no one behind, ensuring that the vulnerable households are supported and empowered, and those who have been impacted can rebuild their lives with dignity. Through adaptive social protection measures, this program seeks to strengthen our resilience to shocks by integrating cash transfers, livelihood support, and shelter solutions that empower families and communities to recover and thrive. A key component of SRP is financial inclusion by leveraging digital payment solutions and access to financial services, where grant recipients are able to receive and manage funds efficiently. With this, we want to welcome those members of the private sector who are here and those who will support us in ensuring that the solutions for payment reach those who have been affected. The effort would not be possible without the collaboration of our ministries, departments, and agencies, as well as the continued support of our local and international partners. Here we want to welcome Ms. Catherine Oginski, Political Head of the Canadian High Commission, and Mrs. Alvita Knight, Consul General for the Bahamas. We also want to welcome the President of the International Federation of the Red Cross, as indicated earlier, Ms. Kate Forbes, as we also identify, joining us here today, the representative from the IOM, Patrice Quesada, coordinator for the Caribbean Chief of Mission Barbados. In addition, we want to welcome and acknowledge other representatives of the Humanitarian Society. We have representatives from the World Food Programme, IOM, Food for the Poor, Global Empowerment Mission, ADRA, Council of Voluntary Social Services, and representatives from Jamaica Red Cross and the private sector. Your collaboration and contributions are vital to the success of the program and reflect shared responsibility and unified approach to rebuilding safer homes, restoring dignity, and strengthening resilience at the community level. We are especially pleased to welcome among us our Most Honorable Prime Minister, Honorable Andrew Holness, Doctor, who has envisioned this program and who will deliver the keynote address and speak to Jamaica's resilience, determination, and commitment to build back stronger. As we embark on this journey of recovery, we reaffirm our commitment to transparency, accountability, and equity in the distribution of support. Together, we can make a meaningful and lasting difference in the lives of our people. With this, I want to welcome everyone who is joining us this morning as we join our forces in rebuilding stronger, safer, and more resilient communities. Thank you and welcome to this important launch.
One more time for Ms. Jennings, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for appropriately setting the tone for this morning's program and underscoring the importance of coordination, transparency, and public confidence as we move into the recovery phase. Thank you so much, Mrs. Jennings. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the approach to this recovery requires multiple partners working hand in hand, step by step. And we are extremely grateful for the technical and operational support provided by our national agencies. And of course, we also acknowledge the assistance from international partners who have been contributing to the coordination and assessment work. I now invite Ms. Kate Forbes, representing the Jamaica Red Cross and the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, to deliver greetings. Please put your hands together for Ms. Forbes. Let's welcome her.
Honorable Prime Minister, Honorable Minister of Labor and Social Security, distinguished partners, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to join you today for the official opening of the Shelter Recovery Program, an important milestone in Jamaica's transition from emergency response to recovery following Hurricane Melissa. The hurricane caused widespread damage to homes and communities, but it also revealed something very powerful: the resilience, solidarity, and determination of the Jamaican people. Across the country, communities supported one another, volunteers stepped forward, and the national institutions worked tirelessly to restore safety and stability. Shelter is central to recovery. A home, a safe home, provides dignity, protection, and the foundation for families to rebuild their lives. For this reason, shelter is one of the priority areas of the relief and recovery efforts of both the Jamaican Red Cross and the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. We are committed to community-based approaches that reduce future costs and risks, strengthen preparedness, and place people at the center of recovery. Together, we have supported damage assessments, shelter planning, and coordination with government and partners to ensure assistance reaches those most in need quickly and responsibly. This people-centered approach is essential not only for recovery today, but for resilience tomorrow. As we enter the recovery phase, the IFRC is proud to support Jamaica's recovery through and with the Jamaican Red Cross, reinforcing its role as an auxiliary to the public authorities. But recovery is more than providing safe spaces. It's about restoring stability to people's lives. That means supporting families to repair and rebuild their homes and ensuring communities are better prepared for future shocks. It means combining strong national leadership with local capacity, supported by international cooperation when needed. None of this would be possible without volunteers. Volunteers are the backbone of the Jamaican Red Cross and globally for the IFRC network. And they remain a vital force in recovery and resilience. I encourage more Jamaicans, especially the young people, to step forward, volunteer, and be part of building a stronger and safer communities. As we look to the future and reflect on the lessons of the past, we must remember that preparedness matters. Anticipatory action saves lives, and resilience in our communities is our greatest asset. Prime Minister, Minister, and partners, thank you for your leadership and shared commitment. The IFRC and the Jamaican Red Cross remain fully committed to this partnership and engagement, to strengthening resilience, restoring dignity, and sustaining hope for communities across Jamaica. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Forbes, for all the work you have done and all you continue to do. The role of the humanitarian partners, ladies and gentlemen, is quite essential in extending reach and accelerating recovery. This partnership approach reflects one of the key pillars of the Shelter Recovery Program, working with trusted organizations to deliver support efficiently while remaining aligned with national coordination and standards. Now, the Shelter Recovery Program is the government of Jamaica's comprehensive framework for post-disaster housing recovery, and it supports household rehabilitation, roof repair, restoration, recovery, and reconstruction using multiple delivery pathways tailored to assess needs. To provide a detailed overview of the program, its structure, delivery modalities, and the implementation framework, I now invite the Honorable Colonel Charles Jr., Minister of Labor and Social Security. Please join me in welcoming Minister. Put your hands together for him.
Thank you, Otelia. Good morning. Acknowledgements, of course, to our Prime Minister, Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Cabinet colleagues, other ministers of state, all of the distinguished guests, representatives of the opposition leader. Let me particularly highlight President, who is here, President of the International Red Cross, who has changed her flight to be with us here in Jamaica, and I'm very grateful for you being here, President Kate Forbes. We have many, many distinguished guests, so I won't go into the long list. Just to say that today is a very good morning. This is hope in action. I want to tell you, the Ministry of Labor and Social Security has been at it since Hurricane Beryl. We have been out. When everything tapered down for everyone else, it went up for us. And we came together and said, you know, we can't wait until 2025. We'll get an opportunity to ease down. And then Hurricane Melissa came. And I want to especially say to those members of the ministry and our partners, particularly the stakeholders in the Humanitarian Assistance Committee, who perhaps you won't know their names, no big positions, but they are the ones on the ground. They're the ones who have been impacted. They lost their roofs, they lost their homes, and the next day they were at work serving the people. Amazing, amazing humans who are fully committed to national service. Volunteers who took the time, closed down their business, went into Westmoreland, went into St. Elizabeth, Trelawney, brought all of the goods that they could. Persons from the diaspora, persons who are not Jamaican by birth, but know more about Jamaica than many of us. And when the ministry and our social workers went into what we call the nook and cranny, they were there before us. It's an amazing testament to the resilience of this country and to the first responders. I want to just particularly say thank you to the gentleman I call the Chief First Responder, our Prime Minister, who it's a new title, new title. And why I say so, when this hurricane was coming, the Prime Minister called us, started the meetings, the ministry started the preparation, started to pre-position so that we were ready. But we could never have anticipated what actually hit Jamaica. The PSOJ, other members of the private sector, with the leadership of Senator Duncan and others who came together to give us support. At first it was serious challenging. That room was a very strong courtroom. But I think, in all of that, it really shows that there is a serious passion for this country that is now culminating in today's launch of the Shelter Recovery Program. A program that will represent our transition from relief to recovery. I can't see the next slide, please. Let me give you quickly an overview. There's a lot to be said, so permit me to be as efficient as possible. So to date, we have completed more than 70,000 household assessments. Do I need to move? Am I blocking you? I think so. Huh? You'll assume. Okay, all right. Good. More than 70,000 household assessments completed, which affect more than 200,000 persons. And of course, these assessments are conducted with the support of not just the Ministry of Labour and Social Security staff, but the several volunteers sent to us by the Honourable, is it Honourable Lovely or Lovely Honourable Babsy Grange? Not sure how it works. And other stakeholders. And that group, I must tell you, is an amazing group of persons, including our liaison officers who have, on their own volition, chosen to come back to Jamaica from Canada, from the US, and have given stellar service. Our staff members who were affected, who continued to work with CTD, Audrey Dear-Williams, who led that group in just making sure that we had persons trained and out there on the buses. Again, wasn't always perfect, but look on where we are now. Put in comparison that we have done 70,000 up, and in burial, in 8 months, we did under 20,000. That's just to show you the efficiency and the improvements. Now, moving on. So when they go out, Minister Hamilton, they go out and they do an assessment in 5 categories. Now it says 4, it's really 5. When they go to the house, they say, all right, some houses, no damage. And yes, there are persons who demand that we assess them, because that assessment of no damage doesn't mean they don't get support. Some of them still, through Ms. Suzette Morris, the Director of Social Security, get food packages. And they have some who have no significant damage, others minor, major, severe. Now we focus down on the minor, major, and severe in terms of those who will receive benefit. And so far, in looking on that three-tiered categorization, the percentages are 42% minor, 40% major, such as you losing your roof, and 18% severe, means you really have lost most, if not everything. So let's talk about how the assessments are done. Now, we have a rigorous field enumeration methodology, which is the utilization of our staff and volunteers who conduct the on-site home inspections. And of course, I don't need to get into the full listing. This includes all of the Humanitarian Assistance Committee members, Food for the Poor, Salvation Army, Red Cross, on and on, persons across government. Anybody else? ADRA. They're going to read me out of church. ADRA, and others. All right? And I must tell you that the World Food Program assisted us last year in really upgrading the system that was utilized, primarily a paper-based system, which is now a digital, functional, operational system called the JH-DINA, Jamaica Household Damage Impact Needs Assessment Tool, which allows for us to have real-time updating with pictures, Minister Dalrymple, Philbert, and GPS location. So we're going abroad. So what exactly is the Shelter Recovery Program? You'd have heard, so I won't spend too much time on it. It is a multifaceted, coordinated national response covering reconstruction, rehabilitation, and relocation. So you'll see it as I develop the framework that the Shelter Recovery Program is the umbrella. And it includes all of what we are doing, which will be the cash grants, the repairs that have been done, the support from the partners, everything. Once it's connected to our beneficiary list, Senator Duncan, it's a part of the program, which means when we do our assessments, it leads to us identifying that list, categorizing the persons, and that is verified. Once it is verified, that's the foundation on which someone can come to us and say, can you identify 200 persons in Black River? And they should fit this categorization. So we can pull them from our beneficiary list, and you become a partner in us addressing that issue. Next. Next. Okay. So who qualifies to be eligible? And we get this question a lot. Who qualifies for the Shelter Recovery Program? Dr. Anderson Thomas will tell you that she had a group of persons confront her to say, how do we apply? Can we apply online? Can we call you? What do we do? Now, you don't need to do that. Once you're on the beneficiary list, meaning once you have been impacted by the hurricane, Minister Main, you have many, impacted by the hurricane, and you have done the assessment, and you have been verified, you are automatically qualified. Now, if we go to your street and we don't see you, we cannot complete the assessment. So we have a self-reporting tool that you can also access, not for you to be qualified, but for you to then be assessed, then verified, then you would qualify. Thank you very much. And as we do with everything, Senator Floyd Morris, in the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, we make sure that in everything we do, we prioritize the vulnerable. So even in our assessments, we have prioritized the severity, meaning we started with the most severe and attempted to do as many of those. So you'll see the percentages in terms of those that are severe will not go up much in the next month because most of those have been completed. And we also target vulnerabilities. So whether it is major, severe, or minor, once you're a senior citizen, person with disability, or any of those issues, you are targeted and prioritized. Let's move on quickly to the SRP framework. Now, We have a very nice diagram here. I'm sure you're not able to see it, so I'm going to describe it for you. What it describes is the various pathways, the components, 6 key components to the shelter recovery program. Let's start with the big one, which is called roofs. Want to know roofs? Yes? And the restoration, Prime Minister, restoration of owner, occupant, family, shelter. Yes, it's a tricky one, but don't worry. You'll get used to it. So roofs, we have to have some, some oomph. Roofs. Roofs is the major component of the SRP that will allow for us now to satisfy the passage of benefit, to that person who is either in the minor, major, or severe category. So if you don't have any damage, you're not going to be a part of roofs. If no significant damage, you're not a part of roofs. But minor, major, severe, you're a part of roofs. Now, you get the tiered 75, 200, and $500,000 in terms of grant applied in that tier. Now, just to break it down further, it's an initial allocation of $10 billion. And as we said before, remember, we prioritize severity and we target vulnerabilities. So of that $10 billion, in approximation, $5 billion will be applied to the most severe. Yes, class, you're working with me. $4 billion will be applied to the second categorization of major. And that's what we're going after first, major and severe. However, we do acknowledge that even in the minor category, you have persons who fit certain vulnerabilities. And so therefore, of that billion, that will be applied to persons who even have minor damage, but who overlap with certain vulnerabilities. Everybody with me? Thank you very much. Good. All right. Now, moving quickly ahead. So that's one stream of the SRP. The next one is a government-led repair, which is led by the Jamaica Defense Force, and I want to truly, I'll have to talk for an hour about the efficiency and the strength of the partnership with the JDF. Thank you, Prime Minister. So the government-led repair is the next stream, and the PM will dive into the details of it. Anything that's related to any one of the programs, such as a compound led by the JDF, falls under that. Partner-led repair is that repair led by the members of the Humanitarian Assistance Committee, like Food for the Poor. I see Ackley here, who's putting on many roofs. Other members like GEM and IOM, who will be working with us, and we won't go into that program that will be announced soon by the Prime Minister sometime within the next month. But that's partner-led. That's the partner-led part of the SRP. The next one is NHT support, which very quickly is through grants, loans, insurances. The rapidly deployed modular solutions, which will be those full or almost complete solutions provided through the Ministry of Economic Growth and Infrastructure Development Social Housing Program. And lastly, there is the intention for us, or we will be extending the normal relocation and regularization programs of the government to make sure that persons who are in vulnerable spaces are moved to more sustainable spaces. Moving quickly. So how does it work? I think by now you should know how it works. So you have a damage assessment. It is verified, approved. We determine which one of the 6 categories you fit into, and then the support is delivered. And I will, at a later stage, very quickly tell you the principles which will show that if you're in one category, you won't be in another. All right. Please remember that. All right. So let me answer the question of when does the SRP start. So you will hear from our keynote speaker the details, but let me just say, it started already. All right? But the roofs section, which I know many persons are interested in, that initial $10 billion allocation, our effort is to continue the work with the geospatial team and my team to get everything together to get that moving by the end of January. For lawyers who are here, note I did not put any year. I'll leave that alone. Prime Minister is not smiling with that one. No, I did get a smile a while ago. All right, so I'm not going to go. I went into the components. I don't need to go through all of that again. Roofs program, can move that on. Restoration of owner, and it's owner or occupant. Just to be clear, you know, you have a lot of places in Minister Crystal Lee's constituency where persons are renting out their space. So the tenant will often want to come to us to say that they want the $500,000. Tenants, you are tenants, not owners. And so in that regard, you'll be facilitated with a rehabilitation grant to assist you. So it's owner or occupant of family shelter, which means not commercial enterprise. I don't need to go into the further details. You know what I mean. Next slide, please. I think we explained the government-led repair, and just to give more detail, what we do with JDF so far, the Prime Minister, when he went on that big meeting, is it G20? G20. He came back with a lot of support for the country, and I want to thank him. We had multiple countries coming back to say that they would assist Jamaica, Rwanda, Guyana, Ghana, Ethiopia to come. Others have given support in other ways, and it has been exemplary, and that's led by the JDF, so that's part of the government-led repair. Partnership-led, we did that already. National Housing Trust, PM will go into that. Deployment of modular solutions, did that already. See how fast I'm moving. Relocation, regularization, or just to note that for the relocation, Minister Marks, and the regularization, the conversation around relocation didn't start with Hurricane Melissa, and it won't stop with Hurricane Melissa. And so the intention here, of course, is to focus on those homes impacted by Melissa. However, the program will bring to attention all spaces that are vulnerable and exposed in our country. So that's a big part of that. Next, strategic partners. So, of course, we could not do this alone. We would not want to do it alone, and we have not had to do it alone. And we're blessed to have very strong strategic partners. And I want to highlight, of course, ADPEM, Commander Gale, and the team have been the crucial partner, the Ministry of Local Government, and others in terms of the support, the JDF, all of the parish municipal corporations who have been working hand in hand with us across all ministries. I don't want to start calling all the names, but just to say that these strategic partnerships have truly allowed for us to deploy in such a way that we are as efficient and effective as we have ever been. We have a record of the level of work being done on the ground, which is, in comparison to what's done globally, as the World Bank has said, world leading. So we want to give thanks to all of the partners. We want to give thanks to the church leaders. Yes, you can clap. And just to indicate that there continues to be a role for all of our partners and a role for all of the members of Parliament, Minister Montague, and councillors and community leaders. And I want to encourage all of you who are listening to make sure that if you go through your community, if there is anyone who is yet to be assessed, that you pass that information to us. And if there is anyone who requires any additional support, meaning they form part of that group that has vulnerabilities, please pass that information to us, despite whatever categorization they are in. The Ministry of Labour and Social Security continues to be the lead agency in terms of coordination. RPM, of course, you know, is with JDF and others driving other aspects. We can move on to the next slide. In terms of the delivery, which I know everyone is interested in, let me say that we will be utilizing further to instruction a suite of payment modalities to advance the delivery and disbursements from the ROOFs program. That will allow for us to accommodate the many different circumstances that persons are now existing in. Some persons are without electricity, some are with electricity, some are not in their home, some don't have access to bank, etc. And so for the $75,000 part, which is the rehabilitation grant, that portion, which goes to the minor and to $75,000 out of the major and the severe, the beneficiary will have the opportunity to utilize it in any way. And the Prime Minister can go into further detail. But for the larger portions, it is our intention to make sure that how we deliver it is in such a way that establishes and assures the country of not just efficiency, but accountability. And so we will be utilizing primarily for that larger portion the digital formats and vouchers that allow for us to know when it's used, how it is used, and to be able to ring fence and have some management, better management over where it is used. And that's what the country, and that's what the Prime Minister has instructed us in terms of ensuring accountability with the money that has been allocated to us. Next slide, please, as I close. All right, so this is a very pretty slide, which I'm sure I'm seeing Dr. Campbell squinting his eyes, so he can't see. So maybe others can't see. But I'm going to read it to you. So with the SRP, what we have done is to develop some principles and protocols that will guide how we execute, and to make sure, MP Miller, that in everything we do, that it's clear and that it's accountable. So, number one benefit per household. And this is from the lessons learned in Burial, where we had some persons who might have been partners for life and utilize the functionality of their different last names in a very good way. And we've learned a lot of lessons in terms of our social workers going out and doing certain investigations, so we don't end up having Frank Witter. Well, let me not use you, Frank. But yes, you understand what I mean. So one benefit per household. We, again, as I said, we target Principle 2, the most vulnerable. Afternoon. We prioritize severe damage. And so, again, instruction from the Prime Minister and Cabinet, in everything that we have done, we've made sure to prioritize the persons who have been most severely impacted. We have digital verification receipts, again, to improve on accountability. Improved service delivery to the vulnerable. We have not only provided contact numbers, but when we go into communities, we not only have the self-reporting tool, but we now have, what we call it, PS, a call-in card that we leave just to make sure, again, lessons learned from Burial, that if we don't see you and you don't see us, you feel our presence. You know that we were there, and you know that you can contact us. Because not everybody has access to the internet to go onto the self-reporting tool. Yes, we've thought of it. Next, elimination of duplication, which means, we have put in place the overlaying structure to make sure that we can identify through the TRN and other means to ensure that persons get only into one stream. Accountability, their strategic partnerships, equity and transparency in allocation, and as you've heard from the Prime Minister, we're not building back, we're building forward stronger. I've already, the slide before this, I've gone through, I just want to reiterate in terms of accessing support. Number one, you must be assessed and verified, Ms. Taylor Lynn, by the Ministry of Labour and Social Security or our partners. Number two, you can utilize the self-reporting tool if you have not been assessed yet to report your damage, or you can call us on our phone numbers. And you can also check your application status by calling us. But there is always the option of going to one of our parish offices, which you call Path Office or NIS Office. And at the office, we will either allow you to access the online tool or just assist you as we see you. And I want to, before I close, say this loudly. There is no fee associated with the process of application for the Shelter Recovery Program. Now, why would the minister be highlighting this? It makes no sense, but let me tell you. Artificial intelligence is being utilized by all, not just those that have good intentions. And so already we have had to cauterize and eliminate from the public domain persons who have sought to give the impression that they are associated with the Ministry of Labour and Social Security or the government of Jamaica, and asking people for information to be a part of these programs. I want to reiterate, there is no fee, and that you should utilize the authentic channels. Government ministries, GIS, Ministry of Labour, the Prime Minister's social media, those are the authentic channels of information. Please, very, very important, because we have found that they target the same persons we are targeting, the vulnerable. And so it is easy. So our social workers are alert, and they're placed on alert to make sure that they can identify the persons trying to destroy our prosperity. Slide. Okay. All right, this is actually pictures showing some of the work already done. So I want to close by just saying that the Shelter Recovery Program is already in action. The work that is being done to repair several roofs and homes has already started. And when the question is asked about what the government of Jamaica, led by Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, is doing about Hurricane Melissa, we will be able to say safely and boldly that our response has been swift and as comprehensive as possible. And on behalf of all of those persons, Prime Minister, who have been impacted, persons who have interacted with our social workers and our team members, who rely on us not just to take down their information, but to relate to us their trauma, we want to tell them that we see you, we hear you, and we are here to continue to care and work for you. I want to thank all of the stakeholders who are assisting, not just with repair of roof, but many who are helping to treat with the mental health issues and the psychosocial support. Several team members, several stakeholders, I don't start calling all the names, but it's an essential part of the recovery. Is not just building back the four walls and the roofs, but building back the capacity, the hope, and the community. And this program truly represents hope and resilience for Jamaica. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister, for that comprehensive overview. One more time for our Minister, ladies and gentlemen. And we do have to give all the organizations and, of course, the ministry a round of applause for all the work that they have done and what they have been doing as well in these communities. So please give them a round of applause. Thank you so much, Minister, for demonstrating how the shelter recovery program moves beyond policy into action. And of course, through initiatives such as roofs, government-directed repairs and partner-led restoration and rapidly deployed shelter solutions, this program ensures that recovery support is targeted, needs-based, and responsive to the realities faced by affected Jamaicans. Thank you so much. So now, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we will pause briefly to enjoy special entertainment. Let's all put our hands together and welcome saxophonist, Miss Andreen Brown. Please make her feel welcomed. so smooth and sultry, so talented. You agree, ladies and gentlemen? Another round of applause for our saxophonist this morning, Miss Andreen Brown. Now, recovery on this scale requires leadership, national vision, and sustained commitment. It is therefore a distinct honor to invite our keynote speaker, our Prime Minister of Jamaica, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness. And of course, he'll be speaking on, of course, Jamaica's commitment to restoring shelter, strengthening resilience, and supporting affected families. Please put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen, for our keynote speaker, our Prime Minister of Jamaica.
Thank you very much, Talia. Allow me to wish for you all a happy, peaceful, healthy, loving, give me some more. Yes, we all agree. I see Dayton Campbell here, and he's the first one shaking his head for prosperous 2026. All distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Jamaicans listening, the members of the cabinet who are here. But I want to especially acknowledge Kate Forbes, President of the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. I do this because the Red Cross is a huge institution, probably the largest and oldest humanitarian entity in the world, supported through various conventions, including the Vienna Convention. And I was reminded yesterday that the Red Cross is an auxiliary to the government. They are in countries all over the world, and they work closely with government. Mainly, they provide good advice to the government as to how to manage disasters. They act as a force multiplier in terms of rapidly increasing the capabilities of governments to provide volunteers. And they ensure also that the relief and humanitarian efforts meet certain standards to preserve the dignity of the beneficiaries. So they're very critical, and it is not always that Jamaica would have the president of such an august institution visiting, and so I must make much of it. And we are grateful to have you, and thank you for your support. Of course, one of the things that the Red Cross does very well is to raise funds. And I am told that you will be raising some funds for Jamaica, and certain programs will be well sponsored and supported. Now, in today's world, we can't take it for granted that the public will understand everything that the government does. In fact, the more we study this issue of government communication, the more we realize that, you know, the more we say, the less people understand. And that is because there is an entire industry now created around attention. In the traditional and conventional way of communication, maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, government communication had a kind of central position. You would consider that to be the go-to source for authoritative information. But in the democratization of media and the evolution of the citizen journalist and social media, you find within that quite a bit of anti-social media, meaning that there are persons whose purpose is just to provide a counter-narrative that may not be true. This is not to say that the democratization of the media landscape through social media and the citizen journalist is not a good thing. I think it's a great thing. I think it has expanded information and given more access. But it also means that government has to change the way in which it communicates to also address this emerging anti-social phenomenon, which, if not addressed in the attention economy, can have people's attention being captured for the wrong reason, and it can lead to destructive and antisocial outcomes, deviant outcomes even. So this administration has taken a very instrumental, direct approach that we are going to stand in the information market. We're going to increase our efforts to communicate with the people, to meet them at their level of understanding, but also to elevate the level of understanding. What we put out must be the truth, and what we put out must edify. It must uplift people, and it must give hope. So in a program like this, where I have seen an artificially generated image of the Minister of Labour and Social Security and of other influential persons, including myself, doing things that I cannot do, which is dance. We have to be absolutely careful that there is no hijacking of a program like this that could have persons being caught paying for receiving the grant, for example. Because there are such scams out there where an unsuspecting person may be caught up in a scheme to say, let me help you to get the $500,000 grant. There is no intermediary. I want to make that point clear. The Ministry of Labour and Social Security is not hiring anyone, any agent, any intermediary to help you to get the grant. So if anyone comes to you, or you may see something on any of the social media suggesting this, please dismiss it. So we are having the launch today to focus the nation's attention on the program and to give the necessary information so that you as the citizen can be empowered with the information and act accordingly in your interest. That's the purpose of a launch. Now, we have spent the last 45 days in structuring the program, but we have spent the last 75 days doing assessments. Now, just to be clear, when the hurricane struck, the government already had in place a plan, a system, a structured program as to how we will respond. And having gone through Beryl, we were able to identify the weaknesses, and we were able, in some instances, to take corrective actions. In some instances, we had to be taking action while at the same time trying to deliver service. So one of the things that we were able to stand up quite quickly, but not as effectively as we would want, would be assessments. Immediately after a disaster, we must conduct damage assessment. And we were able to do damage assessment, first of all, using satellite imagery and using artificial intelligence to recognize damage patterns. And that gave us the initial formation of what the picture would look like for damage across the nation. We were able to use, again, volunteers from the Red Cross, the staff at the Ministry of Labour and Social Security, in addition to other persons who came on as volunteers over those 75 days. And I'm pleased to report, based upon the information I've received from the Ministry of Labour and Social Security, is that we are at about, where we are over 70,000 assessments to date. It doesn't mean that we have assessed everyone, just to be clear. We may very well have missed someone. The assessors may have come, stopped at your neighbor's home, but maybe you weren't there, and so they didn't see you. It doesn't mean that we have skipped you and left you out. What it means is that you should use your initiative and get in touch with the local office or find the number and call. As the minister has pointed out, they have a call-in number now, and there is an online platform for which you can self-register. That means you can give some preliminary data which would be then reviewed, and an assessor will come and verify. So I want that to be clear to all persons who could be potential beneficiaries. Now, the structure of our disaster response is, first of all, preparedness. That happens right throughout the year. Just before the disaster, we engage in a process which we like to call informationalization. We give you as much information as possible about what could happen in the disaster. And then after that, we engage in the relief exercise. And then after relief, we enter what is called the recovery or the restoration phase. And then after the restoration phase, we enter the reconstruction phase. So if you try to position yourself now 75 days or so after the disaster, you would say we are firmly in the recovery phase. But it's not sequential. It doesn't mean that you have to do relief, and then you end relief, and then you go into recovery, and then you end recovery, and then you go into restoration. No, all of these things are happening simultaneously, but they will be at different levels of intensity. So you can say 75 days or so after the storm that we are in a lower intensity as it relates to relief efforts. And it's not just that the government is winding down relief efforts. The people are tired of it, some of them. They will tell you, look, I don't want any more food packages now. Bring the zinc. I want my roof to be restored. Meaning mentally, psychologically, the mindset has shifted. We want to see recovery. And that does guide government's policy. Let me just depart quickly and say this. So, for example, there are persons who will say, listen, the government should keep the duty-free regime for relief into the country for a long period of time. Well, we'll try to keep it as long as we can, because the truth is that what you really want now is not necessarily the relief supplies. What you really need is the building materials, because of the different phase in which we are naturally emerging. And so yes, at some point we try to accommodate. At some point we have to draw the line, because we also need the revenue in order to pay for the recovery. Right? And these are things that we have to balance. But if you listen to the discussion in the social media, sometimes it goes the other way. In other words, there is no consideration of where the revenue is going to come from to pay for the recovery and the reconstruction. So we take this opportunity to explain this to the public in a ceremony like this. But back to the important thing. So all of these things are happening simultaneously. Relief, recovery, reconstruction. We are effectively now in the high intensity of recovery. The recovery has several elements to it, but I will just use two. The first element of recovery is the restoration of infrastructure and utilities. Essentially, we have restored almost 95% access by virtue of roads and bridges and so forth. There are some breakaways that still exist. They are there because it's going to take a huge effort in terms of engineering and cost to restore some of these breakaways. And then we have to consider, can we deal with this in recovery, or should we deal with this in reconstruction? So we have to be thinking, should we rebuild this road, or should we find a different alignment for the road? These are some of the considerations. So when citizens are saying, oh, my road isn't fixed, we understand. We understand the dislocation and discomfort, but we have to think of it very carefully, because we could very well go and fix it back at the next shower of rain comes, because the soil is just not stable to receive a road, and the road shouldn't have been built there in the first place had we known then what we don't know. So these are some of the considerations that citizens should bear in mind when they are confronted with some of these issues as a result of the hurricane. Now, so in terms of infrastructure, as I've said, roads about 95%. You would have heard a few days ago that electricity is at 92%. I'm not going to pick on Dayton and his presentations in Parliament regarding the JPS loans and so forth. But suffice to say, that the loan to JPS was necessary to accelerate the recovery of the public utility of electricity, which drives the recovery of water and telecommunications as well. So it's critical to get back electricity. And again, that has to be done strategically. We won't be able to give back electricity to everyone on day one or right away. So we do critical corridors, critical installations, and then we move to the off parts, the last mile, as we call it. So we are expecting that, by end of February, we should be in the high 90s in terms of restoration of electricity. And when I did the research, we are above our peers, countries of our size, economy, and capabilities in terms of how fast we have returned infrastructure, and just slightly below first world standards, right? So the other element of recovery would now be to get persons back in shelter. Now notice, I'm not saying we're going to get you back in your home, which suggests a kind of final solution. What we want to be able to do in the recovery phase is to relieve the discomfort of not having a roof over your head, a shelter. That's the critical thing right now. And there are many, many, many Jamaicans who are without shelter, a roof over their head. Right? An image that is seared in my mind, driving through, I believe it would have been Bluefields. Two images, Bluefields, I believe so, was seeing in the winter of forests, meaning the denuded forest, someone found it necessary to hoist the Jamaican flag. Some of you would have seen that, and that was just so inspiring. But just driving past that, there was a house that was totally destroyed, a grandmother lying on the couch, and her family around her trying to comfort her. There's no house, just a couch and furniture strewn all over the lawn, and the grandmother obviously ill, and the family just trying to comfort her. And today there are still families in that circumstances, as I am reminded constantly by Dayton and others. I'm not seeing Floyd here, but Floyd, he was here. Different, I'm talking Floyd Green, but my friend Floyd. Floyd representing Floyd Morrison, Professor Morrison, representing the leader of the opposition, but Floyd Green, Member of Parliament for Southwest St. Elizabeth. He constantly reminds me as well of the families that are without shelter. Now, we would have wanted to do this in December or earlier. The challenge was that it would be difficult to undertake payments not knowing what the full extent of the damage was. And the only way you could get that full extent is to actually go and do assessments. So as statisticians will know, that when you start to examine a data set over and over and over and over again, you start to see patterns emerging. So we would know with 10,000 assessments whether or not 50% of them would need $500,000, and 20% would need $200,000, and 30. So you could very well end up committing yourself with a budget that has no real basis on how it should be categorized. And so we had to wait until we had sufficient saturation and pattern emerging of what would be the nature of the damage and therefore the type of allocation that should be made. And so we felt that we reached that point about 2 weeks ago, and therefore we were able to now mobilize and launch a program. So you would now hear the categories. 75,000 minor damage. That would get you a couple sheets of zinc, put back on your roof. Of course, this is not meant to totally rehabilitate. This is to support. So you have to make a contribution to that process. So that's for minor damage. For major damage, we are assessing that you may have lost a section of your roof that would amount to maybe a room, but the structure is still intact. It's still functional, it's accessible. You still have some shelter, but there's great inconvenience. And severe damage would mean that you would have lost probably a roof accounting for more than 2 rooms, or a total loss. The structure is inaccessible or totally damaged. And for that, you get $500,000. Now, we know that the restoration of shelter is not only the restoration of the roof. And therefore, the assessors, the instrument that they go to the public with, would ask, what are your critical needs? Some people say, my critical need right now is to get furniture, because water intrusion was really my issue, damage all my furniture. I don't have any bed, I don't have anything. Some people may say, boy, I need to get back things for my children to go back to school, or some other need. And that is what you would categorize as rehabilitation. But if it says my major need now is housing and shelter, then clearly you are under the roof program, which would be the restoration of owner or occupant family shelter. So this is not anything to do about commercial buildings. If you are an owner of several houses, you can only get one benefit. Right? This is not for the greedy. This is for the needy. I have to be clear on that, which is why we do an assessment. We take your TRN. We make sure you are uniquely identified so that you can't get a benefit here and then come over and get another benefit there. What that does is deprive someone who really needs a benefit where you would have gotten twice. Right? So we're very careful in putting in place a system of accountability which is built from the assessment that is done to ensure that we get the maximum benefit to the maximum number of persons. Now, the strategy of the government for roof restoration and shelter restoration is to, first of all, address those persons who are not able to restore their roofs themselves, vulnerable in the population, and they may have lost everything. So we have what is called the government-directed or government-led roof restoration program. You may recall that very early in the day, I had indicated that the JDF will lead that. And the JDF is in the field coordinating with other engineering corps who have come to Jamaica to volunteer. I want to acknowledge the engineering corps from the government of Guyana, the engineering corps from the government of Ghana, the engineering corps from Rwanda. They are on ground, and we still have a commitment from Ethiopia. And I want to thank our brothers in the Caribbean and in Africa who have come on board to support. They have been deployed right across Jamaica. The JDF is in Akongpong. They are exclusively there working along with the citizens. You would have seen me visit, and it's going quite well. Ghana is also in St. Elizabeth in another area, and Guyana is in Westmoreland. I gather they're going to give an honorary brigadier title to the Member of Parliament, Dayton Campbell. And with that, he will migrate to Guyana. This is the only time I get to roast him, you know. Right, so, and the Rwandan team is on ground. They are being briefed, and they will be deployed to areas in St. James. So that program is underway, and they are repairing roofs. I want to, at this point, specially recognize 2 donors who have come on board to support the program. I want to recognize Chemtech Development. They contributed $70 million worth of material. And I want to acknowledge New Era Homes. They are contributing $160 million in materials. I don't know if Mrs. Tadio is here representing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. They're contributing $160 million in supplies and tools, which will be spread across the various engineering cores to support the roof restoration. I encourage other companies. By the way, I've only caught 2 companies that have contributed directly to this government-directed roof restoration programs, but there are many private sector companies who, on their own, would have gone out to support the restoration of roofs. I've seen some of them in terms of being captured on social media and so forth. And I want to commend them and encourage them. We would love to work with you. And at this point, I should also recognize Trans-Jamaica Highway. They have a program that is coming on board where the government will supply them with the beneficiaries based upon the assessments, and then they will do the restoration. So that's the kind of government directed, government-led roof restoration. Then we have the NHD. And so that I don't make any errors, I will just read the section for the NHD. So the National Housing Trust, as our nation's premier housing agency, has rolled out a suite of additional support for its contributors and the wider public, which commenced November 4th, 2025, last year. So they were just like 30 days or so after they were out there supporting the public. So they have a hurricane relief loan of up to $3.5 million for NHD mortgagors and contributors for their immediate relatives to assist in effecting repairs and home improvements to improve disaster resilience. For example, converting from zinc roofs to reinforced concrete slabs or installing hurricane shutters. And that program is ongoing. Persons are applying and loans are being dispersed. They have a 6-month moratorium from November 2025 to April 2026. And this is an automatic temporary suspension of all the required monthly mortgage payments for mortgagors in the 7 worst affected parishes, namely St. James, Trelawney, St. Elizabeth, Westmoreland, Hanover, St. James, and St. Anne. Approximately, and this, just to repeat, this is from November 2025 to April 2026. This is huge. Yes. Approximately 30,000 loan accounts have benefited from this automatic moratorium for mortgagors. And for mortgagors in other parishes, requests for the moratorium are being considered on a case-by-case basis. So again, this is information that may not be known widely in the public, but should be known when the response to the disaster is being assessed. The NHD has given a 6-month moratorium, 30,000 mortgage accounts that they don't have to pay for the 6 months. Now, there is a disaster relief grant of $500,000 to contributors of the NHT who sustain damage to their homes or those of their immediate relatives. Up to. Very important qualification. So there's a disaster relief grant of up to $500,000 to contributors of the NHT who sustain damage or their immediate relative. Now, the program essentially mirrors the roof program in the sense that the maximum benefit is $500,000 and the benefit is given upon an assessment. And it's very important to understand that, again, if you're getting a benefit through the NHT, you cannot come and get a benefit under the roofs program. And that is why the programs mirror each other. So there's no higher benefit to get from the NHT or a higher benefit to get from the roofs program. Now, of course, there is the insurance program that the NHT always has the peril insurance coverage, and I want to take the opportunity to remind persons, as long as you are an NHT mortgager, you continue to be, and if you have sustained damage, you can apply for your insurance coverage. Now, the NHT is financing the pre-built modular housing solution for rapid deployment program. And this is being implemented through the new social housing program. So the NHT is spearheading a rapid deployment housing solution and is procuring 2,500 pre-built, semi-permanent modular units. The first tranche of 500 housing solutions are expected to arrive in the island in mid-February. These are units of approximately 300 to 400 square feet with a kitchen, bathroom, and living area. These units will be deployed by the Ministry of Economic Growth and Infrastructure Development through its social housing program, along with the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development. They will be responsible for identifying the individuals to benefit, the deployment and allocation of these units, which were procured by the NHT. So how this will work? Again, these units are going to go to the most vulnerable. Persons who won't be able to find the first cent to pay a contractor or a carpenter. You know, so you would be looking at possibly, you know, an elderly, someone who's shut in, a mother with 6 or 7 children and nobody to help. These kinds of vulnerable cases. Of course, I am not the arbiter of vulnerability. We leave that up to the assessors who are guided by, for example, the guidance of the Red Cross and so forth in looking at the human needs and how they should be treated with. My job is just to make sure that the money is there. Right. So now we get to the restoration of owner or occupant family shelter program, the ROOFS program, and I want to credit Minister Montague for coming up with this acronym, ROOFS. and this is the third component of the shelter recovery program. So we have allocated 10 billion Jamaican dollars in the first instance. $10 billion is a lot of money. And immediately after the all clear from Hurricane Melissa, we mobilized teams to conduct assessments. As I've said, we are at 70,000 assessments, and we now know how to categorize these assessments and to make allocations accordingly. Now, I want to clarify how these allocations are made. As I had said earlier, we understand that not everyone will be using the resources to restore their roof. There will always be some need for maybe furniture, maybe school uniforms, maybe something that we wouldn't even know and understand that would be necessary for the restoration of the household to normalcy. All right? We understand that. So what we have said is that activity is called rehabilitation, and for rehabilitation expenditure, the ceiling is $75,000. So if you are assessed as having minor damage, you will get a grant of $75,000. You can use that grant to get, if you had a little stall and you want to get it back up, that's your business. If you wanted to buy back the kids' school uniform and books, that's your business. If you wanted to get back a mattress and a stove or so, that's your business. You can use the grant for that. There's no restriction on $75,000. But you could use the whole thing to get 10 sheets of zinc and put back on your roof, right, for minor damage. If you got major damage, you will get $75,000 out of the $200,000 that you can use for rehabilitation purposes. There will be no restriction on that. The other $125,000, you can put that towards your roof. That is restricted, and you can only use it at selected, authorized hardware or material supplies. Roof directed. If you are assessed as having $500,000 in damage, again, $75,000 is unrestricted. You can use that for rehabilitation purposes, and the other $425,000 focused exclusively on your roof. And we had to do this. The experience we have had is that there are persons who are going to say, well, I'm going to wait for the money from abroad, and what I am going to do with this, it might be a noble thing, such as school fee, or it may go to support the local bar. Now, from my desk as the Prime Minister, and from the desk of the Minister of Finance, it's all economic activity. It's all economic activity. But from a moral standpoint, from a national recovery standpoint, we need to see the roofs go back on. Because we know what is going to happen. The same people who got it are going to turn around and say, the government never gave us anything, or what the government gave us too little, what do you expect? We can't have that. So I'm going to take this opportunity to appeal to you. I know 90% of the people who get the grants, they're going to put on their roofs. They're going to use the funds responsibly. But it is the 10% that is going to create the problem. And so I'm appealing to those persons who already have it in their head, please, use the grant for the purpose for which it was given. It's a lot of money. It's taxpayers' money. It's money for which we are going to have to pay for in debt and interest. I mean, there is this notion that, we get a lot of grants and everybody gives us a whole lot of money. I mean, what we have received in grants and donation is not anywhere compared to what we have spent so far from taxpayers' resources and what we have borrowed. So the government can't be frivolous with how it uses these resources. We have to be thoughtful, and we have to always have accountability in the back of our mind. Lastly, I've studied a number of disaster response strategies from around the world. And there are some countries which, they use this as an opportunity, as we are saying, to rebuild forward. And so what some countries do in this phase is to delay the housing recovery because they understand that there are houses in locations that shouldn't be there in the first place. Not because you don't want the persons to have shelter, but we know what is going to happen again, and the problem is going to reoccur, and what we would be actually doing is an injustice to the people who live in vulnerable areas. And so some persons move the restoration of roofing out of the recovery phase and into the reconstruction phase, where they can find alternative locations, subdivide land, build housing schemes, and then relocate. That means that the inconvenience in living in or living without shelter is extended. We took the decision that we want to get the economy back up and running very quickly. That's priority number one, so we can, pay for the reconstruction. And we do acknowledge the human suffering. So we're doing the shelter restoration in the recovery phase and not wait. It doesn't mean, however, that there will not be a relocation effort, because what is clear is that houses are located in areas where they shouldn't be. And a storm is going to happen again, a major storm, and we don't want to have the same thing happening over and over and over again. I want to just read something since I have your attention. In the 65 years since 1960, the Atlantic has produced 799 recorded storms. 799. Remarkably, 201 of them, a quarter of them, occurred in just the last decade, meaning from 2015 to 2025, my administration. Of the 34 Category 5 hurricanes recorded since 1960, 14 have occurred, or that is roughly 38%, have occurred since 2015. What that is telling you is that definitely we are seeing more intense, overlapping, and more frequent weather events that have super phenomenal impact on lives and balance sheets. So I know the social tensions that immediately arise when we talk about relocation and issues to do with land. But you can be wedded to the past and that's where you will stay. Or you can come to grips with the world that is changing around you and be prepared to change and strategize how to overcome the obstacles. And that's what your administration is prepared to do. But we can't do it in contention. We can't do it when there are people deliberately trying to mislead and misdirect the conversation. And therefore, we are upfront. We are front-facing with the information. If you want to know something, ask. Don't assume. The government is open, and we will give you the right information and direct you. So we are saying, hey, pay attention here. And for this program, where $10 billion is about to be spent, it is important that all the recipients or potential recipients understand the program so that they can get the maximum benefit. So in terms of relocation, we're going to try to do that mostly in the reconstruction phase, which you will hear more of from me about what is the next move as to what we're going to do with reconstruction. Last thing is, and I see the chairman of the UDC here, which I had tasked to assist with the recovery of Black River debris management. A part of the recovery process is treating with debris. That has been very challenging. I heard the head of the NSWMA saying that they have gone over 27,000 loads of debris from across the island, Our original estimate is that they would need to move about 450 to 500,000 truckloads of debris. Significant. It's a lot. But they are chipping away at it. We have given them 10 additional trucks. They really need probably like 100 trucks to make progress. And it is affecting municipal waste collection generally because resources have to be moved into debris management. But I will be addressing that in another presentation. But just to say to the public that is listening, yes, we see the challenge with waste collection, and we're going to address that very shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that what I have presented would have clarified and given the citizens of the country enough information for them to make wise decisions and to be active and participatory citizens. Thank you very much. God bless you, and all the best for 2026.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister. Another round of applause for our Prime Minister, ladies and gentlemen, for that holistic overview on the phases of rehabilitation, restoration, recovery, and of course, reconstruction. Your remarks definitely provide clear national leadership and strategic direction, anchoring the shelter recovery program in purpose, coordination, and a firm commitment to supporting the affected families as the program moves from launch to full implementation. So thank you so much, Prime Minister. One more time for him, please. Now, ladies and gentlemen, of course, with recovery of this magnitude, we do have to bless the program as we move from launch to execution. So at this time, I'd like to invite Mrs. Audrey Dare Williams, Chief Technical Director in the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, who will be blessing the program, our leaders, and all the organizations a part of this program. Please put your hands together for her.
Good afternoon, everyone. So we've heard so much about this program. The word that has stuck with me is hope. Hope, 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 as we bring hope to those who really need it. And so even at this stage, let us bow our heads as we commit this program to God. Heavenly Father, we come before you today with humble and grateful hearts as we have gathered for the official launch of the Shelter Recovery Program. We acknowledge that it is only by your sovereignty and your mercy that we have been sustained since the passage of Hurricane Melissa. Lord, at this time we lift up before you the thousands of families whose lives were adversely affected by this historic storm. We pray that you will give to all who lead this program the wisdom, courage, and strength to do your will for the vulnerable among us. Gracious God, we pray for your divine guidance over this recovery program as we seek to restore the lives of our brothers and sisters in need, as we bring back dignity to our people in this Jamaica land we love. Grant wisdom to all our leaders, our Prime Minister, our Minister, all other members of the Cabinet, members of Parliament, senators, permanent secretaries, and all heads of agencies, and all others who will lead our beautiful island through this recovery phase. We thank you for all the partners, local and international, who have supported us on our journey. Our prayer is that you will continue to bless and prosper them so they can continue to respond to those in need. May we always seek to use all your resources wisely. We pray that you will provide that which we need to respond and respond adequately. Lord, at this time we pray that you will strengthen all of our assessors and volunteers on the ground. And here we mention especially the team from the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. May they ever be mindful that they are but your hands and feet. As we rebuild the physical structures of our communities, we ask that you also restore the spirits of our people, moving us from fear and loss to a future of resilience and hope. We declare today that Jamaica shall rise stronger, bonded by unity and your enduring grace. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Thank you so much, CTD Williams, for blessing us with prayer this afternoon. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are now at the end of today's program, and at this time, we will now have the vote of thanks by Dr. Kamisha Anderson-Thomas, Director of Public Assistance in the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. Please put your hands together for her as we welcome her to the podium.
Gratitude is the bridge between vision and impact. Protocol established. This afternoon, we gather not merely to launch a program, but to affirm a promise that recovery is not abstract, a promise that it is tied to dignity, and that government works best when it works together. On behalf of the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, it is my honor to offer heartfelt thanks to all who made today possible and meaningful. First, we extend profound appreciation to Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica, for your keynote address and for your unwavering leadership. Prime Minister, your remarks reminded us that recovery is not only about rebuilding structures, but also restoring hope, stability, and confidence in the future of Jamaican families. Today, we want to thank you for setting a national tone for people-centered recovery. To our Minister, Honorable Pernell Charles Jr., thank you for the clarity of vision and stewardship of the Social Recovery Program. Your program overview powerfully connected policy framework to practice and underscores our commitment to assessment, to accountability, verification, and no duplication, ensuring that help reaches those who need it most, when they need it most, in a structured way. We are deeply grateful to our Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Dawn Jennings. Thank you for your grounding and gracious welcome, which centered an atmosphere of warmth and ease, setting the tone for a gathering where everyone felt valued and included. To Ms. Kate Forbes, President of the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, thank you for standing with Jamaica. Your presence today reinforces the value of partnership, unity, and shared humanitarian principles that transcend borders. To Mrs. Audrey Dare Williams, Chief Technical Director, thank you for that powerful power. You reminded us that it is only by God's grace and mercies that we were sustained, and that wisdom and strength is important. To Miss Andreen Brown, whose musical interlude gave us a moment to pause and reflect. Thank you for reminding us that if it wasn't for the goodness of God, despite everything, His goodness keeps running after us. Amen? God is good all the time. Amen. To our exceptional moderator, Ms. Talia Shores-Brown, whose steady guidance ensures that today's program flowed seamlessly from start to finish. Special appreciation is extended to our partners across government and beyond, including our public sector institutions, private sector stakeholders, NGOs, and international partners, and the dedicated MLSS, OPM, to our media personnel, and those who joined us online. Thank you. The Shelter Recovery Program stands as a clear evidence that coordination is not optional, it's essential. To the Jamaican families affected by Hurricane Melissa, thank you for activating your resilient skills. This program is for you. The Shelter Recovery Program represents more than repair and grant. It represents a national commitment to restoring homes and strengthening communities. As we leave here today, may we remember, recovery is not a moment, it is a journey. And today, together, we have taken a decisive step forward. Today, the Prime Minister symbolically drove the nail in the roof, yes, that secures Jamaica's recovery. Our minister laid the beam rather, and delivered the framework of governance. And to our partners, yes, you are the walls of support. Thank you for coming on board. Together, we place the roof of protection over Jamaican families. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for your partnership, and thank you for believing in Jamaica, land we love.
Thank you, Dr. Thomas, for all your analogies, and thank you so much for such a vibrant vote of thanks. Now, ladies and gentlemen, today's launch, my apologies, marks a significant step in Jamaica's recovery journey. The Shelter Recovery Program reflects the government of Jamaica's commitment to structured recovery, strong partnerships, and accountability, ensuring that families are supported as they rebuild their homes and restore stability. And as we move from dialogue to action, let the program be a testament to our collective resolve to rebuild, to restore livelihoods, and transform challenges to opportunities for every single Jamaican. Thank you so much for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. We do have refreshments on the outside, and please follow official platforms for continued updates. Do enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thank you very much.